Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this video, we are looking at the very first Marvel Legends Captain America figure. You guys probably saw me open this in my recent haul video, so you know it's not a new figure. I didn't buy it in the package. It has seen its fair share of scuffs and scratches, but that said, it's still a particularly nice looking Captain America figure, especially by today's standards. So I was asked by a bunch of you to review it. Honestly, I was going to review it anyway, but here we are. So let's take a look at the figure. Let's get him off the stand, and you can see him up close and see what some good things actually look like. Okay, so if you collect Marvel Legends today, you know that paint jobs are not a common occurrence, and if they do exist, they are not generally very well done. And while I can't say this is the best paint job ever, it does have one particular paint effect that I think benefits the figure greatly, and that we haven't seen in a very long time. If you look at the torso, you can see that he has this painted on scale effect. Obviously, it's not great. It wasn't in the first place, and it's seen some scratches here and there, but it still has a really nice look. We all know Captain America is supposed to have the scale mail, at least in most versions of the suit. So it's really nice to see that. I think we either need it to be sculpted or painted on for the proper versions in order for Captain America to look proper, to look right. Can't talk. But they did it here, and it looks pretty good. And if you look at the rest of the paint jobs, yeah, the white's a little chalky and out of color, and then the torso's not the best, but that's what we're getting today, and this figure is really old. Let's see if I can find the exact date. 2002. Okay, that's 14 years ago. We're getting at least the same quality of paint applications that we get today. It's disappointing. The shield is actually sculpted. The most recent Captain America did not have any sculpt work on the shield. Very disappointing. The star still does leave a little bit to be desired, but still, it looks okay, especially for the time. Remember, 14 years ago, this was one of the very first highly articulated Marvel figures. So I think they did a pretty good job considering. Let's do a height measurement and go through the whole spiel, even though it's really old. You guys might want to track this down and add it to your collection. It's about 16 centimeters to the top of the head, a little bit more to the top of the wings. About 6.5 to the top of the wings. Well, 6 3/8, roughly. And one of the other things I want to point out, that head sculpt looks like Captain America, not like the ones we've been getting recently. This is a much better likeness to the character. I don't know. The head sculpts lately have been super disappointing, but this one's not bad. And another thing, you could argue that the body is kind of bulbous and out of place looking, but for the most part, the anatomy is really well done. You can see where the shoulders line up in relation to the neck. You can see the chest and abdomen. Everything has generally the right proportions and the right look. It's not super boxy. It's not weirdly concave. You don't see this giant curve on his back like you do on some of the more recent figures. The neck doesn't sit far back onto the shoulders. It's more forward. It's just a much more appealing looking figure. I mean, despite the odd articulation, because I didn't know what they were doing at the time. I mean, we have these kind of weird hips, but they're still not terrible. The hands are a little big. The arms are a little bit lanky. It's indicative of the time it was made, but it still has a very nice appeal. You can see the flow from the thighs down to the knees, to the shins. It's not particularly disjointed looking. It looks pretty darn good. I think they need to look back at some of these older figures sometimes because, especially in the realm of sculpting, the new ones are just severely lacking. Obviously, some things are bad, like the wrist here doesn't look particularly good. But some things, there are some lessons to be learned from the past, I think. This particular shield, I'm pretty sure this is the original one he came with. I had this figure a long time ago. But I have long since sold it, so I haven't seen this in ages. It does have the elastic straps and the clip, so you can get that on his wrist fairly well, or on around his shoulders if you want to. Again, I might be wrong about the shield. This could be from a different figure, but I'm pretty sure it's the right one. I'll have to look into that. That's it for the accessories. He did come with a base if memory serves, but obviously I don't have that because I had to buy it loose. Let's go through the articulation real quick and we'll wrap this up since it's an older figure. I don't want to spend too much time on it. So the neck itself is on a swivel. It could use definitely some more sculpt work in there, but it does have the swivel. And then the head itself is on a hinge and a swivel also. So you can move that head around pretty well. Standard ball hinge shoulder. It's a little stiff. maybe a little bit limited due to the bulkiness of the shoulder. You can swivel it all the way around. Full bicep swivel, double jointed elbow. My lower elbow is stuck on both sides, so maybe that's a common issue, so be aware of that. There is a swivel at the top of the glove, so you can rotate the wrist there. You get the wrist hinge and the finger hinge. Imagine if they didn't spend the money to make those silly hinges and put that towards something else. This figure would have been spectacular. I mean, it really was already for the time. But if they had spent their money just a little bit more wisely, the Toy Biz was known for adding redundant and unnecessary articulation. If they had spent their money a little bit better, this guy would have been a home run. Diaphragm joint, this is more articulation that's not great. Diaphragm and waist twist right next to each other. They don't really have any play other than as a swivel, so you have two swivels, which really isn't necessary. The hips function like a T-joint because it's just a horizontal peg. Doesn't let them go super far forward, but definitely far enough. They do go all the way out to the side, no problems there. Our thigh swivel, it's just an ugly cut joint, but it's not super terrible, so I can let it go. Double jointed knee, no problem at all. We have our shin swivel at the top of the boot. We have a really nice ankle hinge, which we never see these days, and I know it's ugly, but I think if we could combine this type of joint with today's new standards, we would have a pretty nice thing. So we have really good range of motion for that. We have an ankle rocker, which actually works properly. It doesn't turn the foot at a weird angle like the current ones. And then we have a toe hinge. So really, this figure is the entire package. This is what you want in a figure. It's not perfect, especially considering, or not considering, but especially up against some of today's current figures. But it's pretty impressive for its time and still stands up really well. So I think you guys should check it out. You might just want to pick one up. It's one of my favorite Captain America figures to this day. So there it is, guys. Stick around for the photos here at the end, and make sure you subscribe to the channel so you can see my upcoming figure reviews, custom figures, and other good stuff. In the meantime, keep collecting.